Hi, good evening, social change warriors. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us again. If you were already on our earlier live tonight, this is Catherine Felton Page. I am the founder and the movement organizer of Social Change Warriors. And we were on a doubleheader tonight, as my baseball friends love to talk about and go to the good old doubleheaders in Major League Baseball. We had our guest on at 7 o'clock Central Time tonight, where we were talking about the interesting and somewhat scary Christian groups that are in the country right now that are voting for former President Trump and trying to get us all on board their Christian train. So if you're interested at all in that and what kind of issues with democracy we're going to have if the Christian far right groups take over our country, that might concern you a tad. So you might want to check out the replay of my riveting conversation with Amber Kay and Digital Warrior that we just had live on at 7 Central. So you can go and find that in the replay section at Social Change Warriors. Tonight, we are going back to calling out corruption, and we are doing that with our guest tonight. I'm so happy to have him on board. Ed, I would love for you to introduce yourself, and then I'll have Amber Kay, my wonderful partner in crime here at Social Change Warriors, introduce herself as well. Go ahead, Ed.
Thank you, ma'am. My name is Ed Byers. I'm a retired United States federal agent. I did 31 years in federal law enforcement. My first 10 years was as a national park ranger. My next 11 years were as a special agent with U.S. Customs. I worked the border, and then I worked in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I worked narcotics, and I worked white-collar crime. And then on September the 12th of 2001, I got name requested to go help the air marshals. I wound up liking them. They liked me. So I stayed and worked up until 2010. So I retired after that. And then I went back and got my PhD from the University of Louisville in criminal justice.
Amazing, Ed. You are a tough act to follow. I'm going to tell the audience a little bit about myself as well, and a little bit that you may not know, even though we've met, briefly. I am also a retired law enforcement officer. I was a patrol officer for the University of Wisconsin Police Department. It was a later in life career change for me, so I was in my 30s, and then I did the whole patrol thing like you have to do when you start out, night shift, the whole 9 yards, and I then went ahead and transferred to day shift and got into community policing, which was really my wheelhouse because my undergrad degree from UW was in journalism, and I had always been involved in nonprofits and fighting for justice and volunteering, and it was just a really good fit for me to go into community policing. And when I retired, I had injured my neck in the line of duty, so I had to step away a lot earlier than I had planned. And then I did some private investigation work, some private security work, freelance writing for several years, and then decided I wanted to do more with my life and with my education. So I got my master's from USC in social work. So I have been doing Social Change Warriors has been along much longer than the live stream crew realizes. We actually I've been a program since 2016, and we've been doing pre-recorded sessions on justice for all and for women and for disenfranchised, and trying to help make the world a little bit lighter and not so dark. And I've been working with some amazing social workers as volunteers in my Social Change Warriors program. But the recent corruption in the last 10 years that has been kind of dominating the world and dominating the media, so much more corruption, Ed, than I ever remember before, with white collar crime, corrupt police, dirty cops, dirty government. It's overwhelming to me. And I just finally thought, you know what? I'm going to live stream. I'm a journalism major. I like to talk. I have an opinion, and I want to find other really brave souls who have an opinion and want to talk about justice for all. And let's get these crooks off the streets. Right, Ed?
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with your observation too. I've worked many different states and many different counties. I've worked anywhere from major cities to the border towns in Arizona and across from Mexico. And the corruption was never quite as bad as it is now. I live across the river from Louisville, Kentucky, and of course the Breonna Taylor thing is going on over there a lot. And the Louisville Metro PD's having a lot of issues with themselves. They've just got a new chief, and I'm hoping that the Chief Humphreys will do well for them. But Clark County was really hit pretty bad. So,
Well, I'm
yeah.
excited to delve into it because I want to hear about your role in it and what you found out. Amber, will you please introduce yourself? Tell everybody how you got on board with me and Social Change Warriors. Amber has become not just a partner in crime with calling out crime, but is a dear friend to me already after our short acquaintance.
We love each other because we're kindred souls. Kat and I met through the Free Karen Reed movement. We did a standout in Madison, Wisconsin for Karen Reed. Ed, if you haven't heard of it, there's a lot of corruption going on in the suburbs of Boston, Massachusetts right now, and that's what's associated with the Karen Reed case. But I have a background in union work as a union president. I have a master's degree in organizational leadership. I also have counseling experience and a degree in psychology. So Kat and I kind of align in many ways and have a lot to offer in this sphere. So that being said, we became fast friends, and I jumped on board because I believe in the mission. So we're here to do good, and we're here to make change and hold people accountable.
Thank you so much.
That's
Thank
excellent.
you. Yes,
Please
she's
excuse my parrots if they make noise.
Oh, no problem. Parrots. Wow. Parrots are amazing, Ed. They are just amazing, amazing birds. I get such a kick out of them every time I have the chance to meet someone who owns them. That's fantastic. Well, I just have a really short opening, and then we're going to jump right into this corruption in Indiana that you have to share with us tonight and hear more about it. So again, you guys, I'm Catherine Felton Page. I am your host and motivator for Social Change Warriors. I hope you'll join our movement. We are not a live stream show per se. We are not a journalism show per se. We are a movement. Amber Kay joined me in September. Super happy to have her. So she's my program management lieutenant now, and we're hoping to build our Social Change Warriors so we have more and more of you in different states so we can uncover more corruption as we see it. My mom's favorite line with me is when I was living out in the country a few times in my life. I've lived in the Kentucky mountains of Kentucky. I've lived out in the suburbs of different towns. I've actually lived in the country deep into the Kentucky National Forest, believe it or not. And my mom's like, I will never live in the country. I like my crime in the streets where I can see it. Well, all of us that believe in justice and believe in enough is enough with these white collar criminals and these misogynistic, narcissistic people that are out there getting away with crime every day. Well, we're tired of it. We want to see your crime in the streets so we can call you out, bring you to justice once and for all. So luckily, I got the chance to meet up with Ed Byers because I was following him on Twitter X, and I was really intrigued with his posts and how much he cares about America and our communities and how important it is that we just stomp out this corruption that's going on. I'm not naive, Ed. I know we'll never get rid of it all. There'll always be more, but we can stop it sooner, right? We can stop it before it gets so out of control, like what's happening in Canton, Massachusetts, and Stoughton, Massachusetts, and other cities and towns around our country. Most of it we never hear about because it gets buried. And that's what we want to talk with you about tonight, Ed. We want to learn about this case. You can go ahead and forward our deck. We want to learn about this case that you've been covering, and this is about the sheriff. Am I correct?
Yeah, he was the local sheriff, from I think 2014 up. They're term limited in Indiana. They can only run for 8 years. He was a former Indiana State Police trooper. He was a sergeant. Comes to find out, though, that people that knew him both as a trooper and before that pretty much said he was pretty much a dirtbag to begin with. I've been told the newspapers quote 5.2 million as being what he stole from the county in tax monies. He used both his position as a sheriff to take away from the commissary funds and to assign jail employees to work on his private property and his private homes. Then he also he was the head of an EMS and firefighting system. The EMS system provided coverage for the two counties adjacent to Louisville, Floyd and Clark. And he took a lot of money from it. They're saying 5.2. He has to make restitution of 3.2. But I have heard estimates go up as high as 11 million. But due to statute of limitations and his ability to layer that in the money laundering system, that's all they could come up with that they could prove in court. He pled guilty. He was charged with 32 counts, pled guilty to 27 of them, felonies, and now he's serving his sentence up in Newcastle Correctional Institute east of Indianapolis. He'll be there for, well, his sentence goes for about 10 years, about a decade. He's truly a POS. I mean, there's just no other way to put it. He was a corrupt cop, corrupt politician, both. He was the county chair in Clark County. He was also the 9th district chair for the 9th district of Indiana, which covers, I think, about 11 or 12 counties. And he pretty much had everything hammered down. He put his people into political positions. Some of them voted for his contracts. 2 of them have been arrested. One of them, a female Clark County council member, Brittany Faree, who he had a child with, and he was paying her child support off of taxpayer funds.
Ed, I'm sorry to butt in, but how long was he stealing from the American people?
Well, like I said, the statute of limitations limits him going back. My opinion is he was probably doing it from day one. I ran against his designated successor, and I didn't win. I ran as a reformer and pointed all this out in my campaign. That's how I came to be heavily involved with pointing this out. And I had people coming to me that had worked for him and telling me about what he was doing. He bought 5 helicopters. He bought they bought a turbo multi-passenger airplane. He bought a Cessna. The Indianapolis Metro PD, which is our largest city in Indiana, they don't have any helicopters. He had 5.
Unbelievable, Ed.
Oh yeah, very much so.
Where is the oversight, right? And here you are trying to run for office, correct? And so you uncovered a lot of this during your campaign?
I did. I had one former retired Louisville Metro Police Department sergeant meet with me, and he had started with Noel on day one, and he left because of the corruption. He told me when he met me, he said that he laid out a lot of this for me, and he also said that Louisville Metro PD tells their cadets not to work with the Clark County Sheriff's Department because of the corruption, and that just astounded me. But yeah, and then I had a lot of corrections officers and deputies would come in and or they'd slip me private messages. I had a couple of them actually come through an anonymous email service, and a little bit of investigation kind of corroborated what they were saying. So I ran with it. I've had a lot of people in the interim come back and say, you were right and we were wrong. And I tell them I know that. So I'm undecided if I'm going to run again. I'm getting a lot of support to do that.
That's great.
I do enjoy my retirement, and it's the old federal retirement, so it's really good.
Yeah.
I don't have to work if I don't want to. I've turned down
Amber,
a couple.
can you put us? I'm sorry, Ed. Amber, can you take us to the next slide? Sorry, dear. I'm just curious. So I have a couple news informationals that came out. I wanted to play for you if I can get it to work. I'm still learning StreamYard. I've been doing live streaming now since August, but StreamYard can be a little bit picky sometimes, but I'd love to play these if we can get them to roll so I can get your opinion on what the actual news said versus what is to be true, right? How much are the people of Indiana hearing is accurate in the news? Because we know in Canton and in Stoughton, Massachusetts, those 2 cases that Amber and I have been following, so much is not in the news. Can we see if we can roll those, Amber?
Well, what it's doing is it's opening a new tab for me.
Okay.
And so I think we could, but I'd have to stop presenting the Google deck.
That's okay. That's just fine.
Okay. Let me try that. Let me present the screen with the link.
Great. So audience, thanks for bearing with us here with technical. My internet went out obviously right before my first live show tonight, Murphy's Law. So I'm not on my laptop tonight. Normally I can control all of this and make the videos run and all that good stuff. But I am relying on Amber's technical abilities with being my moderator in the background tonight to see if we can pull some of these up, because I would really love to get Ed's opinion on how much the media is actually sharing with the residents of Indiana, because they certainly deserve to know as much as possible people. It's the particular county though, right? It was Clark County residents that were part of the fraud, correct?
Well, it was actually the victims of the fraud are the residents and taxpayers of Clark, of Floyd, and to some extent Washington County and Salem, and a little bit in Jefferson County in Indiana. That's where they stored 28 containers, overseas shipping containers of military equipment that he defrauded the federal government of. So it's kind of all of southern Indiana, really. It's the Louisville metropolitan area.
And the federal government, apparently.
Yeah, he had income tax fraud, and he also had procurement fraud. He was getting stuff from the DMRO auctions, and instead of using it and keeping it for the time he was supposed to, he'd just sell it in an auction as soon as he got it. So there was probably millions there.
So he's just a complete, obviously malignant narcissist who thinks he can just get away with whatever he wants. He felt obviously completely untouchable.
Yeah, I think, and that's the opinion of most people I talk to. That's out of my bailiwick. I'm not a social worker or a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I'm a criminal justice major, so yeah. I defer to their descriptions. But that seems to be a common description of him. His wife, who's also been arrested and facing 9 felony charges, she's filed for divorce against him.
I read that when you enlightened me on this case 2 weeks ago. I dug in a little bit and read that she's divorcing him, but she's also now being charged with felonies, and I believe his daughter, correct?
Yeah, the older, or Casey. He has 3 daughters. He paid for their college tuition and housing with those misappropriated public funds. What he did was he had a credit card that was paid by the ambulance company, New Chapel EMS, and the Utica Volunteer Firefighter Department, and he would charge all that to them, and he didn't claim any of that as income. That's what killed him, is he didn't claim his income. He had millions of dollars. I think 1 year alone he had maybe close to $500,000 that he'd spent on himself and his family. So if he would have declared that as income and paid his taxes, there's probably not a lot they could have done to him, but other than just point out that it was public money and not hire his nonprofits anymore.
Right. Just like the mafia. Look at all the mafia, the head mafia guys that went down on tax evasion. They never got charged for murder or any of the other, lewd and lascivious, right? And all the other scary crimes that they committed. Most of them all went down for tax evasion, which is just hard to fathom, right?
Yeah, it is. And this group did act as an organized criminal organization. They had enforcers. They sent 2 of their deputies out 5 states away to harass my family in South Carolina. That's where my daughter and my grandson had moved to after I left.
Oh my goodness.
North Carolina. But They sent them out to harass them and my friends. And of course, they got caught on a surveillance tape. So it's hard for them to say they weren't there because tape's pretty good. The pictures came out really well.
Those doorbell ringer cameras they have nowadays are spectacular for catching people doing things they're not supposed to do. Correct.
My daughter's boyfriend had a really nice surveillance system set up around his house, so it caught them pretty well. They came out in a sheriff's vehicle. And when they came back, they must have told the individuals at the sheriff's department that they were caught on camera. So that vehicle was traded in that day for a new vehicle.
Wow, that's coincidental.
Isn't it though? But that was at a car dealership in Salem that seems to fall in and out of this criminal organization a lot. There's a lot of threads tying it to that organization. Some of the stuff I got to be kind of nebulous on because I think there's still some investigations going on. I know the letter after I lost the election that December, I sent a letter to the FBI and a carbon copy to the Indiana State Police listing the allegations, the contact numbers, and the witnesses. So I just don't know exactly still what's going on. I told them in letter, I have no personal knowledge of this, but these people do. So I'm not really a witness. I was just a reporting party.
Well, you just be prepared when we tell you a little bit about Karen Reed. It's almost the same thing going on where you got some tips that were sent to the FBI, and the FBI doesn't play. So they're behind the scenes, they're seeing everything, and it takes them years sometimes because they're going to get the big fish. And we've seen that with Sandra Birchmore, where they've started to make arrests 3 years later because they have a 98% conviction rate. So that's good of you to do, and don't you hesitate for a moment to believe that the feds are not looking into this, because they are with that tip.
Well, I was a Fed for 31 years, so I'm very familiar with how federal investigations work. Also, the U.S. Attorney's Office has a 97% conviction rate, not particularly the FBI. None of the federal agencies handle their criminal cases in court. The U.S. Attorney's Office does that.
They
Oh,
just don't
thank you.
they just don't get the credit, right?
Yeah,
Everybody thinks, oh, the FBI did this, the FBI did that. Yeah, we all have this vision of what it is. But so I'm sure that you've seen so many cases in your career that drug out for long periods of time.
Yes, ma'am. I've been involved with them. I had a case in Nogales where I chased a smuggling organization pretty much by myself for about 3.5 years before I made a bust. And the bust was a good size one. It was 490 keys of cocaine. So,
Wow.
it was a pretty good one. It was a good ending to a long, lot of effort work. And I've seen it too with OCDF cases and wiretaps, Title III wiretaps, and the whole thing. It just takes time. It takes time to build those threads of probable cause up to get a rope strong enough to hang on.
Absolutely. That's the key is you've got to have that means motive opportunity and you have to be able to get that probable cause or you cannot take it to court. Your odds of winning it are so low. And so I've always respected, what the FBI does. And even my mother worked for the Department of Justice her whole career. And she had many cases in the state of Wisconsin, white collar crime cases. She had some other cases that it felt like they were never going to end. And it felt like there would never be justice because in the meantime, while all this is going on behind the scenes, these people are out flying around free as a bird, continuing to do what they do, continuing to live high on the hog, continuing to think they're all that and they'll never get caught. And it's very frustrating for obviously the public because they don't know all of what you're doing to make justice happen. But justice can be very slow, right, Ed?
Yes, ma'am, it sure can be. And sometimes it takes community involvement to get that ball rolling. I've been a Fed long enough. My investigative work was with the Park Service and the U.S. Customs Service, and I've been a Fed long enough to know that community involvement really is what spins that wheel, kind of makes it go quicker. And
Kind of like the public pressure when the public, puts some heat on it and makes it known that then there's sometimes a little bit more of a push. Would you
yeah,
say that?
I think so. There was when I first started meeting with people, a couple people started speaking out, and that helped a lot too. But then they had some kind of dubious backgrounds, so they didn't have this credibility. So when I came out, people started listening a little bit. There was a lot of this. Well, he's just a political foe. He's wanting to do this to get the job. I don't really care about the job. I was just going to try to fix things if they wanted me to. Damn, I got a PhD in criminal justice, 31 years experience. I mean,
Yeah.
Mhm.
I pretty much have done it. But
You just
again,
wanted to be a
Ed, you have
public
just as much,
servant.
yeah, you have just as much right to run for office as anybody else, more right than some of these idiots who are committing crimes behind the scenes constantly. And look at what we've got going on right now with this current election. We have a convicted felon running for president. And before he ever became president the first time, all of us who pay attention and understand and can read a person knows that this man was a misogynistic racist. He told us he was. That's what I have the hardest time with, Ed, with everything going on right now in politics, is when people tell you who they are, why don't people believe them? Why do they think they're joking or that they don't mean it?
I think it runs on both sides of the political spectrum, not only the Republicans, but the Democrats too. And I
Yes,
also think
you're
that
right.
those labels allow people to not have to think critically, because these people told me this is what they think, then I'm going to think it too. Now, excuse me. In Clark County, I think that's changed a little bit because these people, they didn't. It's not that they didn't want to believe me during the election or didn't believe me. They didn't want to believe me. I think because then it would have made them look foolish because they'd been fooled for 8 years. Now that it's come out and
Oh,
he's in prison and said, yeah, I did it, I got some credibility. People are looking at me a little differently now.
Right.
absolutely.
And sometimes
Amber,
people don't want to think that that's even possible. Like they don't think in today's day and age that those things are still going on or it's that, that in depth. And it's like they don't, like you said, they don't want to believe it. It's not that
Yeah,
they didn't believe you. They just don't want to believe that that could be true.
we're seeing a little bit of a renaissance down here in Clark County. People are looking at some of the associates that were in this corruption machine, and most of them got booted out during the primary, and we'll
good.
know in about a week how many of them got booted out in the general. But there's still a lot of suspicion about a lot of these people that are in office, and Jamey Noel's corruption machine had both Democrats and Republicans in it.
Oh, for sure. I totally agree with you. I wasn't trying to imply that Democrats aren't crooked. There's plenty of them, and there's plenty of crooked independents and just non people that don't want to align with any party, and they party hop. So whatever party suits them best, which is in all fairness to the Republicans, Donald Trump isn't a Republican. He's not a Reagan Republican. He's not a Bush Republican. He is just an entrepreneur, and he is a grifter, and he will do whatever it takes to get praise on himself, and everybody can see it. He's constantly showering himself with attention, with praise about how smart he is, how tall he is, what a great golfer he is. His kids are the best. His kids are the smartest because they came from him. His DNA is supreme. I mean, these are people they don't affiliate with any party. They don't have a party affiliation. They have a self affiliation.
Yeah, I agree with that. We see that down here. We're seeing it among some of the white supremacists that supported Noel, and yeah, I agree with you completely. They don't have a. There's some people and then some people are just chasing the buck. If I'm going to make more money with this guy in office, that's who I want. And
Yeah.
that's a sad thing to do, because then an election is not. It's not an election or campaign. It's an auction.
Right.
Who puts out the more signs, who gets the more TV time, and that's a poor way to choose your elected officials also. And that case in point was Jamey
Absolutely.
Noel. Yeah.
Yeah,
Kat,
absolutely.
I'll be right back. Continue talking. I'll be right back. I gotta help my
Okay.
son with something.
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead. Yeah, I mean, and the political ads, I mean, they're so misrepresentative. Most of them are just sound bites from speeches that were talking about a bigger piece of contextual, right, information, and then they just soundbite it down to something that sounds so bad and so horrible. And they do it on both sides of the aisle. It's a tactic they use for the uninformed voter, for the voter that just watches commercials.
It is, and I see a lot of it here in Indiana politics, particularly on transgendered people. I mean, all of a sudden they're everywhere. They're getting sex change operations at their middle schools, and what are they using, erasers and staplers, because they can't even afford to buy copy paper. I mean, get serious.
Exactly. It's
But
absurd. It's
yeah,
utterly absurd.
it is.
It is. And then we've heard, so the last 2 weeks has been especially bad with all of the, just the comments about the people of Puerto Rico, and the comments about women. And though I don't even remember his name right now, because I try not to remember names of these idiots who get on TV, and they bring them on CNN, and they bring them on MSNBC and Fox News, and they tell us, this gentleman tells us, he looks right in the screen and says, women shouldn't vote. How in the world can anybody who's educated, as this person professes to be, get on a screen and stare out at the American people and tell us women shouldn't vote?
It's a big problem. My mother, bless her heart, she died a couple of years ago. She was 99.
Oh, I'm so
She was
sorry.
instrumental in Democratic Party here in Clark County, and she was a rebel. I mean, she bought her family farm back before women could own property.
Wow.
As soon as she got they allowed her, she got her credit cards in her name. She had a separate account from my father. She was very independent.
And that wasn't until 1974, Ed. She wasn't allowed as a woman to have her own credit card until 1974.
And I graduated in 74, so I was right there when all of it was going on. But mom stood up for that. My wife is the same way. Which I guess is one of the reasons I love her so much, is she's the same way. She's the mayor of a small town, and she's had to run against some um, malicious stories spread by her opponents, and the town loves her. She carried every precinct the last election.
That's fantastic. So what is she, so when she comes home at the end of the day and she's been out, on the campaign trail, or she's been out doing what she does, and she hears about these malicious, rumors that are put on social media or that are put out in advertisements or on the news, how does she handle all that as a candidate?
Well, she usually addresses it with people, telling them the truth, and she used to get more upset on it than she does now. Now she knows it's just part of being a politician, and she continues to do a good job. And our little town's growing leaps and bounds. It's probably got more growth than any other town in Clark and Floyd County, so she's doing real well with it. So she just kind of ignores it now and moves on, does her job, and tries to do better for the town.
Absolutely. You have to, if you want to be a public servant in any day and age, but especially this day and age, you have to have somewhat of a tone deaf, hearing to the social media, because it's constant, it's mean, it's on all the channels, whether it's, LinkedIn isn't quite as bad. I don't see too much of that on LinkedIn, but I see it on obviously Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever. There's so many other platforms now where people are just super mean. Like there's no other way to put it. They're nasty. They put people down. They make fun of people. They pick on people in such a way that is the worst kind of bullying, to pick at their families and their appearances, or whether they're overweight or if they have a disability, or, I mean, it's ugly. It's ugly to me. And it makes me incredibly frustrated. This week, especially, I was more frustrated than I think I've ever been when I see people at these rallies for certain candidates, including Trump, just laughing. Like they make these disparaging remarks about people on stage, and people at the rallies laugh and they think it's funny. And I don't understand how any human that's been raised decently in our country can laugh at this type of disparaging comments.
I agree. It shocks me. We both have degrees in social science. It just shocks me how people do that. I don't understand it. There seems to be no in some people there is no empathy
Right.
or compassion. It doesn't exist with those people.
Right. And anybody that doesn't look like you or behave like you, or choose to practice their faith like you, or practice their sexual life like you, or vote like you, or pray like you, then you're dead to them. And then they buy into all of this constant rhetoric that, Digital Warrior and I were talking about at 7 o'clock Central, that they keep putting lie after lie after lie in your face on social media, on the news, in the papers. And that eventually, if the uninformed voter who just doesn't have time, I'm not criticizing the uninformed voters. I know people are busy. They have families, jobs. Some people have two jobs nowadays, and there's no time for them to dig into politics. So they do rely on these quick ads, these quick sound bites. But that is just the best feeding frenzy for all of these negative, narcissistic people that are coming after the goodness and the kindness of most people in America.
I think the most important thing you can do as a U.S. citizen, and I fought to save citizens' rights for 31 years. I think the most important thing a U.S. citizen can do is be an informed voter. I think that they
Yes.
need to take the time to read the paper, put the kids to bed, put them in front of the TV, whatever, read the newspaper, see what the articles say, research your candidates, run them through your local website to see if they have a criminal past, run them through your public media websites to see if they have stories about them in case they've got their cases adjudicated and then removed. You know,
You know what, Ed, I completely agree with you, but I think it's another component to this is it's really hard for the American people to be truly informed when they're not always given correct information or true information on our heavy media sites, things that are supposed to be trusted news organizations that don't always tell the truth, or they spin it, and that's on both sides, just like you say. I'm actually very middle of the road, and that where I think most Americans actually are. They just try to divide us. Um,
Right.
I
so
agree
I
with
think that's
you.
a problem.
Yeah, I agree with you, Amber. I agree with you completely. I think it is a problem. we're lucky that for the most part, the Louisville media market has been pretty truthful in these stories about Jamey Noel and what's going on, and now they're covering the repercussions
Good.
of what he did and how it's affected people's lives. He's killed some people because they didn't have proper ambulance responses or equipment to save lives. So we're lucky there. And to be quite frank with you, when I was an air marshal, I spent a whole lot of time in England and overseas, and I listen to the BBC.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
You are
because I think,
so right. That's what I do. I listen to foreign news. I listen to Australian. I listen to British. I have gotten so much, and I'm like, wait, this is so different than what was being presented to us on the American news channels.
yes,
You are
ma'am, it is.
100% right.
And that's because they don't have a horse in this show or a dog in the fight.
Right.
They're just reporting it as they see it.
They're reporting the news, and that's what they're supposed to do. Every
Like
good
we used to
journal,
do, yeah.
right? Every good journalist that ever went to journalism school in America that's worth their salt. They know the difference, and they know. But then when they do it now in this current environment, they get fired. Look at how many journalists walked away or got fired in the last 2 years because they want to report the news as they see it, the news coming from both camps, both sides, fair and accurate reporting. And for one side to constantly say it's all fake news, all journalism is a lie, that's wrong. And then for the other side to be ignorant and not hold up to the fact that a lot of journalists are being pressured, they're being threatened. And there's a lot of independent journalists out there right now that we see because the corporate journalism is all being taken over and it's all being run by one big show, right? So I want to try to show this clip, and I want to get your opinion on what was given out to the Indiana public. Can we give it a try, Amber?
Let's do it.
Audience, we're trying to be techie tonight without me being on a laptop because I lost my internet here earlier tonight.
Ed, are
So
you a boomer like us? We call ourselves boomers when it comes to technology.
Yes, ma'am. I was born in '56, so I'm a boomer.
we've
Born
we've
in
done
82, and I'm
we've
still a
done pretty
boomer.
well with our tech, Amber, to be honest with you. I mean, StreamYard is pretty user friendly, so when I'm on a laptop, we've been doing okay. But I travel a lot, Ed, so
True.
I'm not always on a laptop. Sometimes I have to go live on my phone, which doesn't give me any clicks for handling videos or slide decks. So I've had to teach Amber on the run, and she's been doing great.
Well, thank
That's
you.
good.
I'm trying. Okay, so did it go to the green room that you could share it?
Yep, I see it now. I'm adding it to the stage. It should be up there.
All right. Oh, I see it. Okay, let me hit play.
Donald Trump has invited hate out of the shadows and
Oh, we
into
get
our
a commercial.
communities. Trump called white supremacists.
You got nice political ads.
Connected to former Clark County Sheriff Jamey Noel. His daughter, Casey Noel, has now been arrested. Wave News troubleshooter Mark Stevens is live at the Clark County Jail with the latest.
John, this all happened very late breaking. It just happened in the last hour. Casey Noel booked into the Clark County Jail. She's the daughter of Jamey and Misty Noel, who both have spent time in here as they've been charged in this sweeping public corruption case. Now, Casey, we've learned it faces 9 felony charges, 5 counts of theft, 4 counts of tax evasion. Now, I haven't seen the actual probable cause documents yet, but based on the pattern of this case and what have been revealed so far in search warrants, this is going to relate to her spending on the New Chapel Fire and EMS credit card that she was assigned. Her father, Jamey Noel, was the former CEO of that nonprofit. In the search warrants, it was revealed that she had spent $100,000 over a 4 or 5 year period on personal purchases, didn't repay any of that from any sort of salary or any sort of other account. Things like cosmetics and jewelry, the last time I looked at that search warrant. Now, she will be in court on Monday, where she will learn what possible penalty she faces and enter a plea. But she will be transported from Clark County. She's going to spend the weekend in the Scott County Jail, again, because of the connection between her father, who was the former sheriff here in Clark County. So they're going to move her to basically a neutral facility. She'll come back on Monday to learn what penalties she faces. She was her father's assistant over at New Chapel Fire and EMS. She'd also disclosed that when she ran and run for her elected seat on the Utica Township Advisory Board. But again, Casey Noel, the middle daughter, now the third Noel to be arrested in the sweeping public corruption case against her father. Live outside the Clark County Courthouse, Mark Stevens, Wave News.
Donald Trump.
Well, so it's so deep, Ed. So you're telling me that we were missing in that county. If I lived there, there was a shortage of ambulance and EMS response because these crooks were buying cosmetics, jewelry, helicopters, God knows what else. Is that what was going on, Ed?
Yeah, they call Casey now the vape queen. She spent a lot of money at a vape store. But you're right. There was the head of the county commissioners in Clark County still in office. He comes up, I think, next year after. He when he announced that, well, they had bids. They put out for bids. New Chapel EMS, which was Jamey Noel, and then another one, I think Heartland or somebody put in. They went behind closed doors to open the bids. Then they came out and said they were going with New Chapel, and it cost them $250,000 more than it did the previous year, and they lost 3 ambulances. And he said that was a great bargain. And everybody went, "Can you not count? That's a horrible deal."
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of
He had 5
nepotism.
helicopters. You said he had 5 helicopters, but they didn't have any helicopters in Clark County. Was that accurate?
Well, they were with the sheriff's department. I don't know if he fixed them up and sold them or exactly what they were. They were old Vietnam era 70s, 68 to about 74 military aircraft. So in that aspect, they were vintage and probably not real safe to be used in a duty situation.
Right.
You don't see those used a whole lot in public service because they're not real at that age. They're just not real airworthy.
No, they're not.
To the
So
best
is
of
it-
my knowledge, they've only used it once or twice.
Yeah.
You
So
are
is it-
right, though, that there's people that have actually died from this because, I look at my own personal experience. My son as a newborn needed life flight. Is that something that is associated with that in any way, or is it just the criminal aspect of it?
No, the life flights here would come out of Louisville. There's at least one hospital, if not 2, that have their own helicopters. Thank God, because it wouldn't have
Right.
made it. But his slow responses actually killed a Republican politician in Clarksville, Rid Worrell. Poor guy had a heart attack on the day of the election, and it took them forever to get an ambulance there, and he was gone. Just
Wow.
nothing they could do. Another guy was a janitor at the Jeffersonville High School. He had a heart attack, and they did CPR on that poor guy for 3 hours before an ambulance got there, and then it was another ambulance. It wasn't New
3
Chapel.
hours?
Yeah.
Oh
There's a
my
lot of-
gosh.
There's a lot of people that when they testified in the victim impact portion of the trial, they talked about how one kid lost a leg because of poor medical treatment. Another couple actually, one, I think at least 2 died that they talked about. So yeah, it's a big thing.
Why did this not make national news, Ed? I am
I was just
flabbergasted.
thinking that.
It did make national news. It made international news. I got, of course, going all over the world as an air marshal. I made a lot of friends with a lot of national cops from other countries,
Right.
and I got email messages from London, New Zealand, Christchurch. It made all there, Canada.
But
it
was it a blip? Because I watched the news and I did not see anything about this.
It didn't make it a whole lot here in the U.S. as much as it did overseas.
I don't think so.
I don't
'cause-
have the answer for that.
Yeah, because the Karen Reed case, that was not in the media at all, and then all of a sudden it was. And then when it hit the media, it hit the media. But this case, if it hit the media, I'm thinking it was a blip, and maybe for reasons we don't know. Again, maybe more corruption
Public
is the
pressure.
reason.
Just like
Mhm.
Ed was saying, public pressure, with even Karen Reed, this would still all be hidden if it wasn't for the activists and the social change warriors bringing it to light, so it's kind of a similar situation like Ed's bringing it to light, and that's how more people are knowing about this and it's getting out there.
Well, you have to remember too that Jamey Noel was very politically corrected. He was in charge of both the current governor of Indiana, Eric Holcomb's re-election campaign, and he was also in charge of Mike Pence's campaign when he was a governor. Of course, Pence now he's the vice president, but Jamey got a personal invitation. Jamey and his sidekick, the one that beat me in the election, they went up to Trump's inauguration. They were there for that.
Well,
now,
that would explain a lot. That explains how he got away with this for so long, and maybe why it was only a blip in the American news.
Yeah, and it's also worth noting that Jamey Noel is identified by I want to say a fairly large newspaper. I forget who it was, but he was a member of the Oath Keepers.
Holy cow. He had his hands in just about everything possible that one person could put their hands in.
He did, and I don't see how people didn't see it. I mean, if you're a cop and you don't see that your boss has 133 cars and 3 mansions and a pole barn with an apartment, and he's buying suits that are, $2,000, $3,000 suits, and he's wearing rings and Rolexes and stuff, either you're the dumbest cop that ever walked God's green earth, or you just turned your blind eye for political advantage is what you did.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm typing that in the chat box for our replay. Blind eye turned in Clark. It's Clark County, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
these things can only happen when there's bystanders that let it happen, in a sense, right? So if people early on would have stepped up and not allowed it, maybe it could have been curtailed. But once the power was there, it was hard to get that power taken away.
You're absolutely right. There were safeguards in place with the Clark County Council, which is the physical body for the county, the Clark County Commissioners, which is the governing body of the county, and to some extent, some of the other positions that they should have been able to look at this and go, this isn't right. Why haven't we gotten a commissary report as required by law for 8 years? What's going on here? Why has he got 133 cars? He's a public servant. Where does a public servant get the money for 133 vintage and classic cars?
Ed, who are the checks and balances for this commissary report? How did this go unchecked for 8 years?
In the county council. One of the things that I ran on was transparency, and I was going to publish that on a website every year so the people could see it. As it is now, the current sheriff has turned in 1 of the 3 that he's owed them. He's turned in 1, but they won't release it to the public. They just say, oh, he did a good job. He's being transparent. We're saying, where is it? We can't find it. Don't
they have to release it to the public?
I think if you had a Freedom of Information Act request or some sort of Indiana open records request, that they would have to. But who knows if it's doctored or what? I mean, at this point, nobody really trusts them anyway because of all this corruption.
Right. And where does it end? Like, when does the shovel hit the rock? I mean, how deep do we have to keep going, Ed, in Indiana? Just like what we're dealing with, those of us that have been following the corruption in Canton and Stoughton, Massachusetts, the shovel has not hit the rock yet. We are still digging on that case. Most of us that are following, especially those that followed it early on, like Aidan Kearney, he tackled this case really early on and broke it open. It would have never made mainstream media without independent journalists like Aidan Kearney. He went to jail for it. I mean, is that what it's going to take, Ed? Are we all going to start having to go to jail like Aidan in order to blow open the crime and get the shovel to the rock?
I hope not. What I hope is that I've talked to the Indiana representative, the person running here in Clark, up in my end of the county, and then in the south end of the county, there's another lady running down there, and they both have indicated that they would like to have an anti-corruption ethics type law come into existence so that this doesn't happen again. One of the representatives over in Floyd County, which is next county over, has already started to address the stuff with EMSs about having to put their contracts on public record. so that people can see those. So, and we're talking about both Democrats and Republicans here. So there is an issue
Absolutely.
about it. I think what they need to do in Indiana, at least for the sheriff, because a lot of the sheriff's departments in Indiana have issues up in the region around Chicago, north of Indianapolis and central Indiana, and to some extent down here in southern Indiana too. There's been issues. They need to enlist the state police to keep a closer eye on some of these sheriffs. I think that's the only way you're going to get it fixed. A lot of these deputies are political appointments. They're not merit appointments.
Exactly.
Christ, we've got a guy that's caused a death in one of our schools from one of his actions, and he's a corrections officer acting as a school resource officer. Why would you put a correction officer in a school? It just doesn't make any sense to me. But he's a political appointee. He's not a merit appointee.
Yep. There was another case, Amber, that I haven't had a chance to talk to you about yet, with a sheriff who was, they finally figured out that he was, raping girls. And I mean, I could do live streams from now until I'm 100, and we will continue to find corruption in government, corruption in police. And it's tough, because sometimes we just want to say, let's live stream about all the good people. Let's just spend 2 weeks and find every good cop and every good public servant, and let's interview them and talk about them. But that's great, and there's people that need to do that, but there's only so many of us that have literally the guts and the stamina and the emotional ability to call out the corruption, and not all of us can do that. So I'm going to leave it to people that can handle all the good stuff. I can handle the bad stuff. I can sleep at night and still broadcast about the bad stuff. Not everybody can. So there has to be more of us that can do this, that can call out corruption, continue to do what we have to do to make noise, right, Ed? We have to make noise, because they're going to continue to do what they do. They will not stop if we don't make noise.
You have to speak truth to power. You really do. And a lot of people, like you say, are scared of it. They're just scared. I can't tell you how many people, told me something, said, I don't use my name. I'm scared of these people. I'm scared of this family. Heck, one guy that was a Republican, and he was saying stuff about him. They threatened him with his life. They called him up and said it'd be a shame if his body was found 3 states away, 100 feet below a cliff. Of course, I reported that to the FBI too, because that's also part of a criminal conspiracy enterprise there. But yeah, it's hard to speak truth to power. It's easy to say you've done a good job, and there are still some good cops out there. But unfortunately,
yes, absolutely. There's lots of good cops. There's lots of good people in government. Like I said earlier, when we were talking to Digital Warrior, we can't get too discouraged with what's bad out there. But the bad has to be uncovered. We have to be brave enough. I mean, I was threatened. My life was threatened by someone I arrested. Just about everybody I worked with was threatened at one point or another. Law enforcement officers get threatened all the time. Judges get threatened. Lawyers get threatened. Ed, I'm sure you were probably threatened when in the line of duty as well. But journalists are getting threatened now, and independent journalists are getting threatened. And the case of
And protesters are getting threatened as well with bogus crimes. Just to give you an example, Ed, in Canton, it's not just Aiden Carney, the journalist blogger that they call him, because he's more than that. He's done a lot, where they set him up to get him in jail for 60 days and have him facing 120 years in prison on felony charges for witness intimidation. And then they want to charge 9 protesters outside of a pizza shop on a public street with signs that it's witness intimidation because it's causing this witness allegedly emotional harm, because that's the way the Massachusetts law is written, that it can be considered witness intimidation, not based on the intent of the person or the words that were said necessarily, or that there's physical harm, but that it's causing emotional harm to the recipient of it. And they're just protesting because of the corruption.
Yeah, I can see that. It's sometimes the way the state laws are written. I've noticed that in Indiana with some of the punishment issues with some of the crimes. It's a pretty bad crime, but it has a pretty light sentence. I mean, they agreed to about 10 years, maybe 12, for Noel. There's a lot of people around here thought he should do more time because of the
How in
money.
the world are they? Yeah, I saw that, Ed, when you first sent me this case, and I was absolutely flabbergasted. We've got people in jail for smoking pot serving more time than that. We've got high school and college kids that have served more time than that for selling marijuana. You've got to be kidding me. This guy was committing white collar massive crime that led to people's deaths, that was proven that his mismanagement of funds and his criminal activity with funds and his lack of control over his nonprofits that had to do with ambulance service caused people to die, and they've given him 10 years.
Yeah, I agree. I'm used to, of course, I'm used to the federal system where there's truth in sentencing. There's no parole, or it's once you go in and you serve your time. But it's a little different here in Indiana, and that's something that the General Assembly of the state of Indiana needs to address. They need to come up, and like I said, there's 3 members here in Clark County that are working on it. So 2 Democrats and a Republican. So hopefully something will happen.
Good, because the two parties, they have to figure this out. They have to get along better. They have to compromise better. There has to be more. All this hypocrisy right now is insane with the Christian far right groups and groups that have no concern or care for the majority of Americans. They only care about their own selves and what they want America to look like from their own small, narrow perspective. And none of us can stand for this anymore. We have to fight for democracy. Democracy is on the ballot this election, people. It's not about Democrats or Republicans or independents. It's about democracy and justice and freedom for everyone, which is what America stands for.
Yeah, it is. And people need to make themselves informed voters. They really do. That's the best thing we can do. We have a bloodless revolution every election, and now's the time to vote these people out. I don't have anything against Republicans or Democrats per se. What I have something against are corrupt cops and politicians. Just hate them with a passion, and I'll be the first to admit that bias. But because they're the ones that take away from the people both money and resources and trust.
Trust.
And to me,
I was waiting for you to say that. I knew you were going to say trust, because we trust the police to help us, to protect us. We trust government to set policies. We vote for you to do what we can't do. Yes, Ed, that was so well said. Sorry to interrupt you. Keep going.
no, well, it's true. That trust is important. And when we have corruption that does happen, and it's proven and admitted in court, then that trust is tarnished. And in some cases, it's going to take years to build it back. And it's going to take a special person doing it. Quite frankly, nobody that has mentioned that they're wanting to run for the next sheriff's election has impressed me with the knowledge, skills, abilities, experience, honesty, and integrity. And without all those together, I don't think you'll rebuild community trust here for a long, long time.
I'm very
And
concerned. Yeah, go ahead, Amber, but I'm very concerned for you, Ed. Yeah.
In Canton, something like you talk about the trust with these public officials, and in Canton, they actually banded together. It's inspiring, under Rita Lombardi and others in that community, to get a police audit, and had a special vote for it and actually won. So their police department, and they're trying every way to put barriers up to prevent this from being done and being done correctly. But these people have worked really hard. So right now they have interviewed companies, they have the money allotted for it, to do a police audit, just to make it better and make sure that the policies are being followed and enforced.
Yeah, and that's what it's going to take. It's going to take audits. It's going to take open and transparency. And as long as people aren't transparent, both politicians and police officers, when they're not transparent in what they do, I understand keeping stuff under wraps till a case is closed, but then you need to be transparent. Why did you do this? Why did you use a taser? Why did you call SWAT? Why did you arrest this person? There has to be transparency to build that trust. And without it, there's no hope.
Absolutely, because, for the public to trust law enforcement and to trust government, like you were saying, people have to understand a little bit about how it works. A lot of times the public demands something that they don't understand why they can't have it. So tell them why they can't have it and tell them when they can have it. right? So exactly, some cases are very sensitive, and you cannot share with the public until the case is closed or has gone to trial, because you could slant it. You could cause it to be turn on its ear and go the other direction. So there's a reason why law enforcement has to be secretive about certain things to do with the cases, correct, Ed?
Yes. Yeah. You don't want to tell the name of any sexual assault victim, particularly if it's a child or a vulnerable female, even a vulnerable male. You shouldn't do that. So there are some things that you would keep quiet, but you can always, A was assaulted by this person at this time, that there are ways that you can sidestep that and at least be transparent in what happened. Um, it's scary. It's scary how, and I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, Catherine, but sometimes police, they fall in and protect their own, and that's not right. You should have a duty to intervene and a duty to report.
And I agree with you 100%. And I'm mad about just what I feel is an uptick of cases of police malpractice, police breaking laws, police actually murdering people. There's been an uptick of domestic violence murder with law enforcement officers that I've been covering on my Wednesday night show. And what went on in Stoughton, Massachusetts, Ed, if you're not aware of it, is one of the most despicable, disgusting cases of law enforcement with the thin blue line that I've ever seen in my life. I wanted to be a police officer at a very young age, so I would always follow a lot of cases. I would watch a lot of crime shows, read a lot of crime books. I always held police at such a high standard, a high level. I always believed that if I was in trouble, I could walk up to a police officer on the corner and say, help me. And now I'm terrified to do that, because I don't know if that police officer is in cahoots with the crime, with the criminals, and in cahoots with the white collar government crime, in cahoots with the mafia. What happened in Stoughton to Sandra Birchmore has to be one of the worst tragedies I've ever seen in this country in the last 5 years. She was groomed as a child. She was part of an Explorer program in Stoughton, Massachusetts, for the Stoughton Police Department, groomed as a child by these 3 officers. One of them was the supervisor, Officer Devane. The other 2 were twins. They were both officers, Matthew Farwell and William Farwell. And they groomed her, and we don't know how many other girls yet, because nothing has come out yet, but there's got to be more. It can't just be one. In my experience as a domestic violence expert, there cannot just be one victim here. But she was then groomed and basically managed by Matthew for all of the rest of her life. She was murdered by him 2 years ago, strangled, and he set it up to look like she unlived herself. So not only was he a narcissist, manipulative narcissist, pedophile, dirty cop, he was also a psychopath. So he
Yeah, but
set
not
up.
only that, Kat, I have to interject. I'm sorry. Not only was he a
No,
psychopath, but you have to talk about how he got away with it and the police officers that covered up for him and were bystanders to this pig.
Oh, absolutely, Amber. It's such a diabolical story. I mean, he groomed her. He had sex with her. He told her what to do. He ran her life. She ended up getting pregnant, and then because he didn't want to deal with that, and he was done with her, he orchestrated her fake unaliving and got away with it because they covered for him. The government in Stoughton, in Canton, the police. There were so many people that knew that this happened and that knew it was going on for years, which the like you were saying earlier, Amber, when Sean on the Gulf, he's from Canton and he's also ex-DEA. I don't know if you've ever met Sean, Ed, but he's ex-DEA out of Boston, and he was from Canton, and he's been covering this case on his live stream show. What's it called again, Amber? I always forget how to say it. Motion, something in motion.
Oh, going through the
Going
motions,
through the
and it's by
motions.
Sean on the Golf or Shawnee Oak,
Yes.
and yeah, he's amazing. He has a lot of experience. He reminds me a little bit of you, Ed, in the sense that he has the knowledge to back it up, and he doesn't have that fear. Like he's vocal about it, which I appreciate.
Right. And he's
hindering
been
that. But he's
basically, like Amber's saying, he's been saying, it's time for all these, as he calls them, mofos are going down because there's so much corruption in Canton Stoughton. People have died and nobody is paying for any of this. They just finally arrested, the FBI got involved, Ed, and they finally arrested Matthew, but they have not arrested his twin yet. They have not arrested Devane yet. They have not arrested the resource officer. I had him in my deck last week, and I'll be talking about him again because he's definitely involved. There's so many people that need
They
to go
haven't
down for
arrested
this.
Guarino yet, who didn't find 32,000 text messages and signed off on that, but allegedly, but the FBI found it just fine. And he's also associated with the Karen Reed case. So there's a lot of them in on it and covering up for their buddies.
Right. And
We
this is just down the road from you, Ed, in Massachusetts.
we have that in Clark County too, here in Indiana. A little unincorporated area called Henryville had a young lady named Brittany Bowman, a very vivacious, pretty woman, was shot. She survived a little bit before she succumbed to her injuries. But before she died, she told her family who shot her. And when the family told the sheriff's department, the investigator at that time said, well, we can't arrest him. He works for the county sheriff. So, there's some issues here too with that.
Well,
That's been passed on to the state police too.
Well, they couldn't search, and I know I'm going back to Karen Reed, but they couldn't search Brian Albert's house because he was a Boston police officer. So he has a dead man sitting on his front yard, but you don't think to ask, can I look around the house?
Yeah, precisely.
I just wanted to put up a comment. Thanks for commenting, everyone that joined us in the chat box tonight. I really appreciate it. And all of you on replay, if you have any comments or if there's any cases in your communities that you want any of us to look into, please let us know, because we are all about it. We are done watching dirty cops and crooked government run our towns and our communities. And we have to build a community of social change warriors. That's what we have to do. So he or she wrote here 4 years talking about what cops did to a suspect, 4 minutes of talking about what the suspect did to the victim. Sad. Yeah, it's utterly disgusting what goes on in this country, and the victims, the families that are Ed, what's going on, what happened in Indiana. There's so many victims, and we don't know them. They're not, are they coming out? Are they speaking? I know in Canton and Stoughton, the victims' families are speaking out. The community is speaking out now, and like Amber said, calling for a police audit. And but we need to know, we need to hear about the victims. We need to hear about how their lives have been affected and ruined by these criminals who lived high on the hog for years and years off of money that was never theirs.
Yeah, and there is somewhat of a renaissance here as far as victims talking about it on social media, about what happened to them, particularly family members and stuff like that. I think we'll see more of it now that Noel's been incarcerated, adjudicated, and when his wife and daughter also, and then one of the other suspects that was arrested in relation to that case was a Clarksville City police officer who was on the county council and voted for Noel's contracts and accepted quite a lot of meals, vacations, that sort of stuff from Noel. So I think as these people go to jail, we'll start to see more people being more verbal and more communicative on what's happening. Yeah, and who's policing the police? It's got to be the people, because right now nobody's doing it.
Absolutely, it has to be. I mean, in my own environment, I saw things going on in my own department, in other departments that was rumored, that we all heard about, but that was not always brought to light. And you become frustrated. Or do you become the whistleblower? Do you risk having your life threatened and your kids' life threatened, or do you walk? Do you walk away and get a new job and say, I can't do this. I can't put my life in danger. I can't put my family's life in danger. And I don't disrespect anyone who does that, because we're talking about dangerous people here. We are not talking about shoplifters. We are talking about dangerous people who commit the R word, which I'm not supposed to say. I don't understand why they're taking words from us anymore in this world. I'm not supposed to say rape. I'm not supposed to, I'll do the George Carlin thing. I'm not supposed to say rape. I'm not supposed to say sexual assault. I'm not supposed to say murder. I'm not supposed to say this, that, and the other. Well, come on, people. This is what's happening. These people are dangerous criminals. They are threatening people's lives, and they're trying to take over and ruin the democracy of America for their own coffers, to put money in their own bank accounts. It's all money. It's all greed. It has nothing to do with the welfare of the American people.
Yeah, it's sad, but there was an issue under Jamey Noel when he was sheriff where 28 female inmates were raped by male inmates. And he allegedly said he had a video of it and it didn't happen. And then that video suddenly disappeared. And then they settled out of court with these 28 women for a fairly substantial amount of money. So, you know, you got to say the word if that's what it is. If they broke the law and raped somebody, that's what you got to say.
Exactly. These are words in our dictionary. And now YouTube and social media and the media is trying to tell me I can't say words that have to do with crime and corruption and abuse of women. I mean, what are we coming to? What are we coming to? I mean, sexual assault is sexual assault, domestic violence, domestic abuse, domestic murder. This is what it is. Why do I have to say something else? You know, that's just a whole nother live stream that we could go down a path. Ed, I don't want to keep you too much tonight, but I'd love to have you back because I want to know more about what you think the wife and the daughters and anybody connected to him in his octopus's tentacles. I want to know what you think's going to happen. How many more arrests might we see coming? And I'd love to have you back.
Okay, be more than happy to. Just give me a holler and we'll schedule it up.
I will absolutely do it. Thank you so much for your service. Thank you for
Thank
putting.
you, Catherine and Amber. I appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you. It was very nice to meet you. Thank you for your service. I truly admire you, and I do think you are an American hero. And I'm not just saying that. I see your courage and your bravery, and it means something to us who care.
Well,
So
thank you. I
and please
appreciate
come
it.
back.
You
I appreciate
represent every good law enforcement officer. There are still a lot out there, people. Don't be discouraged. Don't be despaired. Yes, there are crooked cops. Yes, there are dirty cops, but there are good police officers that care about you and want to protect you in the community. There are still good people running for office. They want to be your senator. They want to be your congressman. It's up to you to figure out who they are. Not everybody tells you the truth. People lie. So get better at distinguishing a lie from the truth. That's what we have to do as the American public. We have to get better at telling the difference between lies and truth and who really cares about us and wants to protect us. And that's what we can do here at Social Change Warriors. We can help you determine that and distinguish a lie from the truth and help you protect your community. So I hope you'll join us. I hope you're subscribed to our channel. We are not monetized. We are here as volunteer servants of American people. We are here for whatever we have left in our life to make the smallest part of the world better that we can by sharing our crime and corruption stories with you and hoping to shine the bright light and put these people in jail where they belong. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Amber and I are going to stay on for a little bit. If you want to stay on with us, we're going to update you on some Karen Reed and the murder of John O'Keefe, a little bit about some things that have come out in the media today. But for those of you that joined us to meet Ed and hear all about what was going on in Indiana, thank you for joining us tonight. And Ed, I can't wait to have you back. I'll get a hold of you and we'll set up another live stream together.
Sounds good. I've got to go let the dogs out, so I better take off.
You do it. Thank you, Ed. Take care.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wow, what a great,
Well,
amazing
no.
guest.
He is such a wealth of knowledge. He reminds me of Sean McDonough. I couldn't think of Sean McDonough's last name at that
I
moment.
couldn't either. I had a brain fog, Mogan. I just pictured Sean on the Gulf and telling us all about the crime and corruption in Canton, Massachusetts. I mean, both of these heroes that served our country in law enforcement with the federal government in the capacity that they did. They are brave and
Honest.
they should be respected, and they really truly do represent the majority of law enforcement, everyone. But we do have to call out the bad eggs, and we have to get them out. They have to be fired, they have to be jailed. if they
Those
committed a
mofos are
crime.
going down.
Yeah, as Sean, I'd love to have you as a guest on Social Change Warriors, Sean. If anyone knows Sean and you're out there, please tell Sean we want to have him as a guest. We so respect him. So with that being said, Sean was live yesterday and he was on fire. So if you didn't catch it and you have followed the Karen Reed, John O'Keefe's murder and Karen Reed being accused of the crime, which none of us believe she committed. 83% of America does not believe Karen Reed committed this crime, that she was framed by a fellow Boston police officer and his family at 34 Fairview on that very snowy, blizzardy night when John lost his life. He was found in the front yard of 34 Fairview in Canton, Massachusetts. He was pretty much frozen to death because he was out in the cold, but his injury actually turned out to be a blow to the back of the head, which rendered him unconscious and did brain damage that was not recoverable from. He had very few other injuries, nothing that aligned with being hit by a car, which is about why 83 to 84% of us who watch the trial do not believe in a million years he was hit by a car, because he had no lower body injuries, no bruising, no broken bones. This was a massive head injury that almost looked like a blow to the head with some sort of a blunt force object. It was quite large. There had to have been a lot of blood that would have come out of that head wound, which no blood to speak of other than what they scooped out of the snow and put into solo cups, red solo cups, mind you, because they didn't have evidence collection kits.
And then those red Solo cups were put in a shop and stop bag, a grocery bag, not
Correct.
a sterile bag.
And not properly sealed or properly stored. The amount of incompetence that went on makes zero sense to me, because all of these law enforcement officers in Canton go to the police academy. They are trained. They have to attend in-services every 3 to 4 months, depending on your municipality or your city. But every 3 to 4 months, you have to go to in-service. You have to be retrained so that when the actual bad event happens, you have been trained and trained and trained so that muscle memory will come back. That's how we keep our police officers safe. So don't tell me ever, Canton, that your police officers purposely did this bad of a job unless they were told to, unless they were ordered to, because none of them would have been trained that bad. I don't believe it for 1 second. So the cover up in this case is mammoth. And when it all comes out someday, so many mofos, as Sean on the Gulf says, are going to frickin' jail, because people's lives have been ruined. The Canton residents that have supported Karen Reed and that are up against this ridiculous select board of basically sorry white men, because I know there's a lot of good ones out there. I have a lot of friends that are white, black, green, purple, and orange. But these guys in Canton, these white men, they need to be fired. They need to go bye-bye from government. They are terrible at their jobs. They're not auditing the police. They're not keeping track of what the police is doing. And like Amber said, Rita and Jen and so many other, Kathy, and there's so many people in Canton now that are standing up and attending. They're going to these board meetings, these select board meetings in person, and they're talking and they're speaking out and they're saying we've had enough. And that's what we need in every community in America. We need you to go to your county board meetings. We need you to go to your select board meetings, your city council meetings, your school board meetings. You need to go to them. This is your voice. This is your chance to make a difference in your community and call out the crime when you see it. We have to do it, people. We can't be afraid anymore. We can't let the bullies bully us and take over our communities. Right, Amber?
Right. And when Ed was telling the story about in Clark County, Indiana, there were so many parallels once again to Karen Reed that I could have gone crazy when there's missing video or there's
Yes.
corruption. You got cops in Canton working overtime to a tune that just doesn't make any sense. And it was like Karen issues with have happened with the police, and the Karen Reed type situations are everywhere. It is in your backyard too. It is not just in Canton, Massachusetts, and Stoughton, Massachusetts, and Clark County, Indiana. It's everywhere. And unless you hold people accountable, unless you speak up, unless you get involved, it's going to continue or get
That's
worse.
right. Preach, Amber, preach, because that is the truth, everyone. We have to take accountability. We can't just hide our heads in the sand anymore and say, I'm too busy. Yes, you have to raise your kids. I appreciate it. I have 2 awesome sons. Yes, you have to work. I've had lots of jobs, lots of careers, as you all know. I've had part-time jobs. We know you have to do all these things, but we have to care about our communities. This is our one and only shot. We only live here once. Unless you believe you're born again, which good, more power to you. Believe anything you want. But right now, this is what we've got. So we have to care about our communities. We have to care about the policies that are voted in by our congressmen and our senators. And we have to read, and educate ourselves. We can't just rely on commercials and what is fake news and what is called a news station like Fox. They're not a news station. Please, people, that is not news. I'm a journalism major. Trust me. Most of these news stations are just telling us what they want to hear. They're feeding us what they're being told to feed us by their multi-rich billionaire owners. So you have to rely on independent journalists. You have to rely on people that you trust and believe in, and you have to dig, like I was saying with Ed, dig the shovel, because it's just deep. But eventually, if we keep standing up and we go to our council meetings and we go to these board meetings and we speak out and we protest if we need to with signs on the street, then we will hit the rock at the bottom and we can clear out the corruption. But then it's going to happen again, because there will always be corrupt people. There will always be good people. There will always be kind people, and there will always be corrupt criminals. It's just part
But
of the way the world works.
the hope is to always have those checks and balances in place to catch it right away. The problem is when it goes unchecked, and it goes unchecked for a long period of time, and then it grows like a cancer. And that's the truth. And so we need to be more, I hate to use this word because it has a negative connotation, but say more aggressive, and not physically. I mean more aggressive with our voices, be the ones that are out there and outspoken and loud, and making sure that things are being done right and holding people accountable. And that's my point, is about we need those checks and balances to prevent it from happening, and catch it when it's happening, and call it out when it's happening.
Absolutely. And you have so many great examples, watchers. You have the civil rights movement. You have the women's movement. You have, go back in time to the women who had the guts to protest voting. I mean, women couldn't vote. It wasn't that long ago. Women couldn't vote. Women couldn't have a credit card. Women couldn't own property. Those women had the guts to go out in the street and protest with signs and stand up for what they believed in, and they earned that right to vote. We have to do the same thing now for everything that makes no sense. If the 1 + 1 doesn't add up for you, that means there's something wrong. That means there's corruption afoot, and we have to root it out and call it out. And when we see people accused of crimes and it doesn't make sense, and we don't believe that they should have been arrested, who's going to stand up for them? Not just their lawyer. No, the community as rallies around people. We have to do that. There's too many arrests that happen in our country that are wrong, that had zero evidence or had only circumstantial or was corrupt in the first place, as in Karen's Reed case, what we believe was planted evidence. So many experts have told you that there's no way a taillight exploded into 47 pieces in the front yard of Brian Albert's house. How many experts have to tell you that before you actually believe that this woman was framed for this man's murder? What does it take? Now you don't want to believe in science, right? You just want to believe in the people that you want to believe in, because who are they to you? Are they your relatives? Do you trust them? You trust people you don't know on social media spouting nonsense on a daily basis more than you trust a scientist or a physicist?
Right, right. And I've been going down this case in Delphi, Indiana a little bit, just to slightly get off topic, and it's kind of the same old, same old. And again, where's the evidence? Everybody thought you'd come to trial and some evidence would come out, and they don't have nothing, nothing, no DNA, no fingerprints, nothing to tie this man, nothing. And they have him in solitary confinement for 2 years, and
If
he's
he didn't do it and they have no evidence that a jury could honestly convict him on, remember again, it's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, which the Karen Reed jury had so much reasonable doubt. It makes zero sense to me that this was a hung jury. Even let's just say she did it. Let's say she accidentally
Right.
ran him over and doesn't remember because they were both so drunk. It doesn't matter because the jury can't convict someone without enough evidence that's beyond a reasonable doubt. So I personally don't believe that's how it happened. I believe he was beat up in a bar fight after bar fight. They were all drunk. They were mad, arguing about something, and he was hit in the head and died. Panic ensued, and let's frame the woman. Let's frame the girl. That's easy. We can do that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have, God only knows what's going on with the Delphi case, these poor, sweet, innocent children who had absolutely no reason to be in trouble or have anyone try to hurt them or target them for any
Right.
kind of an assault like this. We need to know who killed them. They need to go to prison, but we don't want the wrong person to go to prison. We don't want justice for someone at the expense of someone who's innocent. And this happens so
Right.
often. The police get so gung-ho that if they don't have a suspect, and if this case is closed or cold, and there's public pressure, of course there is, because two young girls have been murdered and we want to see justice for them, but not on someone who didn't do it. We can't do
Right.
this anymore. This has been going on for centuries in our country. So many people in jail for crimes they didn't commit because police and government are pressured into getting a conviction or making an arrest. Well, that can't happen. I mean, I want justice just as bad as anyone for the death of an innocent, but not when it comes to convicting someone who did not do it or arresting someone who did not do the crime.
Right. And just not having enough evidence to support conviction beyond a reasonable doubt. So even if you have a hunch, even if you think, because otherwise this entire justice system doesn't make any sense. It just becomes an injustice system. It's not helping
Yes.
people by convicting innocent people, even a small percentage. I'd rather let a guilty man go free than convict an innocent man. And if it can happen to Karen Reed, that was eye-opening to me. And I think that's why a lot of women, a lot of middle-aged women, we're, as Turtle Boy calls us, we're connecting with the Karen Reed case
I'm
because
beyond middle-aged. You're middle-aged. I have to shut the door. Hang on 2 seconds.
oh, sure. I'm just saying and letting everybody know that it's us women that are like we're connecting. Who is Karen Reed? Like, why would they do this to Karen Reed? Karen Reed could be me. Karen Reed could be, my friend, my sister, Karen Reed could be anybody. If they could do this to her and almost get away with it, really.
They've gotten
It could
away
happen
with
to anybody.
framing two innocent women as well, Amber, that we have covered on our Wednesday night Angry Bitch Club. A
Yes.
police officer framed Sandra Birchmore for her own unaliving, made it look like she hung herself on a doorknob when he strangled her to death. And Ellen Greenberg, who we've been covering on Wednesday nights, was also made to look like a suicide, unaliving YouTube. 20 stab wounds, 10 in the back, 10 in the front, one a fatal blow to the back of her neck, but yet the knife was in her chest. So that was a frame job by whoever killed her and whoever was backing him, the government, because his family was big. Because I believe that both those cases were, and we do now know that Sandra Birchmore's was domestic violence murder. There's so much evidence that it won't take much to convict Matthew Farwell of murder beyond a reasonable doubt. Ellen Greenberg's case is still ruled an unaliving. Her family is fighting for that. There is so much still going on right now in other cases that our audience doesn't even know about, that I have not even had the time to bring to the platform. It's maddening, it's frustrating, and it's literally despicable.
So what did you to change topics a little bit? I'm just curious. We were texting back and forth after Shawnee Og,
Yes.
John McDonough was kind of yesterday had enough. He kind of hit his peak and was like, I'm done. Like
Yes.
I'm not putting up with anybody trashing my name, and I'm sticking up for myself. And it was I just wanted to get your thoughts, Kat, on it. Like, what did you think about Sean's live stream yesterday?
Yeah, well, I was in physical therapy a lot yesterday for my bad neck. I missed it, but I was tuned into my dear friend Auntie Deb, who I met through the Karen Reed trial as well, who is a parody comedian and super hysterical. And he live streamed his reaction to Sean's live stream, which was epic. If any of you are following this Karen
Yes.
Reed, John O'Keefe murder, you need to go check out Auntie Deb on YouTube. Um, I did then finally was able to watch Sean replay. Um, yes, I think what happened is that Sean is from Canton and this is his hometown and he cares deeply for the residents. This is a small town. He is so upset by the amount of corruption that has gone unchecked and continues to go unchecked because the wrong person was arrested for John O'Keefe's death. The government is still governing and they're still corrupt. The police department, nobody's been fired. Nothing has changed. Everything is status quo since the day John O'Keefe was murdered, other than people were put up on administrative leave, investigated, but nobody's
Like
fired.
Sean's putting his neck on the line. He has that
Yes,
history as a DEA agent. He's been in the game, and these people are relying on him too. There
they
are
are.
there are McAlberts that are influencing some social media hacks who are making up complete lies about people.
Yes.
I'm
Total,
okay
just
with
complete lies, not even like white lies or half truths, absolute complete lies to try to take down the people that are trying to help with Karen Reed's case and get her freed once and for all.
right. They're attacking all of those that are trying to get the truth out there. And I felt for Sean last night because I felt his pain. He's been going through it. He has had some deaths in the family. He
Yeah.
has really reevaluated things. He has been there for other people. He seems like he'd be the most loyal friend you could ever have.
Yeah.
Um, and I felt for him. And it was funny because when Auntie Deb was saying, calling him Papa, saying it's like your grandfather, and I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, Sean McDonough, that's who Sean McDonough reminds me of. He reminds me of my grandfather, my fiery Irish grandfather with the big blue
Abs-
eyes. And I was
Absolutely.
like,
He and I would go at it at the Thanksgiving table politically, but I would still love him if he was my
yes,
grandfather, right? Because
right.
we still love people. We don't diss people or lose our family or our friends over politics. We just try to have civil debate, civil discussions, and just get on with it. I respect Sean immensely for what he's done, putting his neck on the line for this case and calling out, as he says, the mofos, because that, first of all, really cracks me up because sometimes you just have to almost laugh at this level of corruption, the level of narcissism that these people have in their brain, that they think that they can get away with murder. They think they can get away with anything, just like Ed's case that he shared with us tonight in Indiana.
Hmm.
For those of you, if you joined us late, please watch back on the replay. Ed was an amazing guest. He shared a case in Indiana that made a little blip in the media because this sheriff is well connected in his party and well connected in the government and in the whole state of Indiana, and it's just utterly despicable. And it would appear, as Ed will join us again maybe in a week or two, and we'll hear more about what future arrests are down the path for all these people in Indiana. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around this just corruption in Stoughton and Canton, and with the other deaths that we have covered on Wednesday night that still have no justice. It will continue to cover that going forward, Social Change
Right.
Warriors, and we'll continue to try to find guests that will enlighten you and take you to school and maybe motivate you to get involved and become a social change warrior in your community, because that's what we need. We all need each other. Our hashtag Just Us is that. There are times when it is going to be just us, and we have to be a community, and we have to stand up against crime and corruption and lies, and just really nasty people that have no moral conscience whatsoever. So we have to band together to do that. Um, Amber, do you want to pull up just a few? Should we try and see if we can show a little bit of Sean? Because his live stream was pretty impressive yesterday.
Yeah, I shared it, his live stream from yesterday. It should be in the green room.
Okay.
Um, and hopefully he doesn't get mad at us, Sean. We just want to play a little clip. It's just commentary. We're not
Yes.
trying to steal it. Go to
Oh
Sean's
no,
channel
we
and
are.
please watch the full thing.
Right. We are all about you, Sean. We're just doing fair use here to promote you and share you out because we agree with you and we believe in you and everything you've done to help with Free Karen Read and find the true murderers of John O'Keefe and finally get this case some justice and get John and his family the justice that they deserve.
Okay, so let me just give you a quick background so you understand what's going on. Yellow Cottage Tales is this troll that lives in his parents' attic who is not a nasty person who pretends to be a very nice person that uses logic and reason, but he just literally flips sides to be popular or get money, probably, allegedly. But he seems to be a mouthpiece for the McAlbert. So that is what the Sean stream is about. Calling him out because Sean was nice to him when everybody else was like, this guy is a kook. Sean would still be kind to him and was a good friend to him. And finally, this man pushed Sean too far, and he was like, "I'm done. I'm done." But then Sean calls out everybody a little bit. He lets everybody know this is how I'm feeling. And I think a lot of people are going to call him up and they're going to talk it out and be friends and make amends and everything's going to be fun. But I don't think anything that came out of his mouth wasn't truth. I think the man spoke from his heart. So that's my introduction. Now I'm going to play.
Perfect recap. Thank you, Amber.
Hold on. Let me get it to a good point past here.
But did you ever think all these secrets, Brian, like Brian and Nicole
What am I doing here?
and Matt,
Hold on.
It's okay, Amber. It's tough to find the right point.
severely for her life. I'm just not going to get into it. But anyways, I wanted to get that out there. All right. And, and say thank you so much to everyone. It's been an incredible community we have. I read all, believe it or not, even though I don't get a chance to respond, I do read every one of those messages you do send to me. So thank you again. And like I said, I appreciate it. Okay, so where are we today? Right? Well, first of all, I'll give you a little backdrop to what happened about yesterday. All right, and why I'm doing this show today. Okay. Over the weekend, I was able to, in between prayers for the family of my friend, I had to occupy my time, and it was good because, I was basically sedentary. I was back and forth with the family, from friends who are here, and I just had to get out of this rut. I mean, there's only so much you can do. She's got the best doctors in the world.
Sorry to stop it. He has a friend that is ill and he's upset about it, but just fair warning, there's going to be a lot of cursing. So if you have little kids in the room, which is kind of late for, but if you have anybody that doesn't like to hear the cursey words, you might want to put the headphones on.
Yes, trigger warning.
Right? Honest to God. And so I said, well, I better do something for mental health. So what did I do? I go watch Plevin from his show on Friday night. And I'm glad I did, because I said, this is it. So the first thing I saw was this fool, Jules. I don't know what she calls herself. Jules, the real deal. Jules, the artist formerly known as whatever the fuck she is. She's a scorched earth, a witch doctor. Who the fuck knows what she is, right? But I saw her. Now listen, back in the day when she was on Team Reed,
Papa's going off.
I saw her giving up all this shit. I said, something, maybe she does have good sources. Well, when I was watching this show, I was watching the chat. And I'm saying, look at this mofo. She goes, I've got it on good authority that Alan Jackson funded Sean McDonough. I said, oh, beautiful. Now I know she's a bunch of fucking bullshit. And I kept reading, and people saying, give us the dirt, Jules, give us whatever her name is. I don't even know what her name is now.
I know who he's talking about. She's big on Twitter.
And Julie from last night on
Karen Read all the time.
So she's a McAlbert.
Yeah, she's a big time.
She's a McAlbert troll.
She has me blocked now because I was clapping back at her for all the nonsense that just just no proof. The stuff she puts out, she has no proof for it all. Like, he has every right to be upset and mad about this, for sure. Because there's so many of these. I think they're paid by the. Oh, and audience, if you haven't followed Karen Reed closely in the death of John O'Keefe, it's the Alberts and the McCabe's is the family involved. They're married. They're married to each other. There's Brian Albert, who is the Boston
They're
police
in-laws,
officer.
they're
They're
married, yeah.
in-laws. So Turtle Boy Aiden Kearney, I believe, or his followers, started the phrase McAlberts. I don't tend to use it because I want them both to take responsibility. The Alberts and the McCabe's need to take their share of responsibility for what's happened in this case. So I personally don't use McAlberts, but I understand why others do.
Okay.
Rogue, but I don't know. She's some fucking medic or some wannabe medic. I don't know, but she's a half of ass. She really is. But getting back to her, she's saying, and I know they brokered a deal. When Aiden was in jail, Alan Jackson reached out to Sean and he said, Sean, I'm going to fund your YouTube channel. And Sean says, okay. And I'm going to give you all this money. And I'm also going to make sure you get on all these crazy ass news outlets, like whatever, right? And she says,
Right.
I've got it on great authority. I said, well, beautiful. Well, she's done. It's over with. Her credibility right down the fucking tube, right? Then Kevin's out there and he's talking about,
Kevin
starts
from
talking
Yellow
about
Cottage Tales.
Alan Jackson broken a deal between Aiden and his team. And I said, oh, beautiful. This is going to get him right into the trick bag. Because what Kevin doesn't realize, right? He doesn't have a pot to piss in. But Jackson doesn't give a fuck about that. He really doesn't. I'm going to tell you right now, right? Kevin Lenahan right now has walked himself not into the crosshairs of Alan Jackson and company, but what he did, and that's the next step, what he did to this unsuspecting juror, right, was nothing short of a predator's letter, okay? And why I know this is because the way he said.
Hold on, I got to give some background so people understand what's going on.
Yes, thank you. I
So-
wanted you to do that because I know you know more about this than I do.
Oh, you know I'm obsessed. So Kevin, who they call Plevin from Yellow Cottage Tales, the guy that lives in the attic,
Allegedly.
he is
Allegedly.
allegedly lives in an attic. He essentially somehow got one of the jurors, one of the pro Karen Reed jurors, information in private email, and Turtle Boy went over this on his live and emailed her, in a sense, threatening her that he's going to like expose her and basically giving her opportunity to tell her side of the story.
Right.
I believe it's the one that got kicked off the last day or something like that.
Yes.
And so he not only did it once, he did it more than once, wrote this person, and it's disgusting because it's like there's hidden threats in between each line, and for
Right.
him to have content. And so he says he's writing a book and her story needs to be told. So essentially doxing a juror right now. And it's scary. So that's what he's referring to.
Right. And then they went on social media and made it out like Aiden did it when he never did that. Aiden has never given up a juror. He's had complete journalistic integrity throughout this entire case.
Yeah, absolutely. He's definitely towed the line. Like he likes to play around a little bit and say, should I reveal it? Should I not reveal it? But he doesn't. He's
Right.
just saying, I got the cards. Just know that. I'm not going to put them down, but I got the cards.
Exactly.
And that's all it is. But he's never actually doxed a juror. He's never put their name out there, even
No.
though he knows who the names of jurors. And he's gotten interviews by 2 different jurors who have come to him, not other news media, to give these interviews to
Right.
Aiden Carney. So that gives him a lot of credit. He is not a blogger. He is a journalist.
Well, he started out as a blogger and he's turned himself into a journalist. He was a school teacher, so he has a good education, and he's been able to train himself and become a journalist, an independent journalist. Absolutely. The other thing too is there's a lot of false accusations out there that Free Karen Reed movement, the people in pink, as the as these group of idiots like to call them, which is ridiculous. That's Karen's favorite color, and the people that care about her and believe in her innocence chose to wear that in honor of her, which I find very admirable. They have accused this innocent. They're very non-violent group of ladies, mostly women, ages 30 all the way up to my age, 60s, who have gone out to protest for Karen Read because they believe in her innocence, and they have every right to do that. And the people that don't believe in her innocence have every right to protest on that side. That is America. We have the right to protest here. We're not
Right.
Russia. We're not going to get poisoned or shot because we protest against government or against police. But they have accused the Free Karen Read movement of threatening jurors, and there is no evidence to that. None at all. So again, more lies, not half truths, but actual blatant lies, because there is no evidence that anybody in the Free Karen Read movement has been violent. Absolutely zero evidence. In fact, they're the opposite. They are the opposite of that.
Right, right. And so that's lies even on us, the people. So we should be outraged too.
Set it up. All right.
Exactly.
See, Kevin, and you'll see this today. You'll see everything of why I've studied this guy since day one. Right. And the last thing I ever thought is that I would ever come out and bang up a guy who's dealing with 4-stage lung cancer, whatever the fuck he says he's dealing with. And guess what? I believe he is. But guess what? When you are that guy and you say you're living 3 months at a time, you don't turn an evil hand on people who've never touched you. Okay?
That's right.
Now, we're going to go way back on this idiot. All right. You know, to call him a mofo is too nice. He is one slime motherfucker. He's a slime ball. But the way he set this up, see, he doesn't get this, right? He writes this letter. God knows how he got this person's name or her email. But he wrote her a letter like a wolf in sheep's clothing, right? Like, you know, Uncle Kev, I'm Uncle Kev. I'm this nice guy, right? Fuck you, Kevin. And I know you're watching. You got to watch right now, buddy, because it's going to come crashing down on you, you little fuck. All right? Because I got you right by the balls like I should have had many, many months ago. But I let you get that rope, Kevin. I gave you so much fucking rope because you, my friend, mistook my kindness to you for weakness. And buddy, you have no fucking idea whose trap you just came into.
So he is really. Oh, that's not a nice pause on Sean. I'm sorry, Sean.
Oh, it's okay.
He's
I think we'll do it now anyway, Embers. We're going to have to continue this because there's more coming.
I know it's getting late.
Yeah, and there's getting late for you because you have to work tomorrow. And I've been on for a while, but I want to cover some of this more. I would love to be able to reach out to Sean and have him on our show, Social Change Warriors. I really believe he truly is a social change warrior, and he's going to be speaking about something coming up that I want to speak to a little bit. So let's plan on our next week, Thursday show. Let's do the same thing again. Let's end with a little bit more updates because something else interesting came out today out of the Turtle Boy camp, Aiden's camp, about a piece of carpet that possibly the Karen Read defense team has that could have DNA from the 34 Fairview basement.
You're kidding. I have not seen this because I've been under a rock today.
Yeah. So I really want to talk about that when we meet again. So thank you, Amber. I know you were super busy tonight and today. And thank you to everyone that was in our chat tonight. Thanks everybody who was live with us. Thank you, Replay. I really appreciate you. I'm just trying to do a little bit of good works, trying to bring our community together, trying to stand up against corrupt criminals, crime in the streets where we can see it. Let's stomp it out. Let's end it. Let's protect the victims and their families. Let's get justice for them. Let's stop victims from ever happening, because if we can call out the crime early enough, we can end it. We can end it before people get murdered. We can end it before people get hurt. And that's what we need to do as a community. We need to protect each other and stand for each other. So thank you. It's just us, Amber and I right now, but we're hoping to add more social change warriors. I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Thanks for going rogue with me this week with a double up on this Tuesday, but we'll be back normal schedule next week on Wednesday and Thursday. Please take care, everyone. Please vote. Thank you. Take care. Good night.
Good night.